Electric truck mandates. Current situation background. California's electric truck mandates. California has long pursued aggressive zero-emission goals for transportation. The Advanced Clean Fleets rule aimed to require zero-emission heavy-duty trucks to replace diesel models starting in the mid-2020s. These regulations were projected to affect nearly 1.8 million heavy trucks and were phased in with deadlines through 2035 to 2045. Industry reaction and AMP. Enforcement changes. Enforcement of these mandates has been postponed and contested due to concerns about feasibility and infrastructure readiness. Many trucking businesses delayed buying diesel trucks because of uncertainty around enforcement, which led to disruption in capital planning and fleet decisions. Lawsuits and AMP. Opposition. At least 17 states, led by Nebraska, filed a lawsuit against California's trucking emission mandates, asserting that they could disrupt interstate commerce and force national supply chain impacts. 2. Real operational problems cited by trucking groups. Trucking industry advocates and studies have flagged practical issues with the electric transition. A. Cost and infrastructure. Electric heavy trucks are currently much more expensive than diesel, in part due to costly battery packs and higher electricity prices per mile. Charging times for large electric vehicles are significantly longer than refueling with diesel, reducing operational efficiency. Charging infrastructure, especially for long-haul trucking, remains sparse, though efforts like Greenlane's EV charging corridors are underway to build commercial EV charging networks between major routes. B. Grid and power concerns. Reliable electric infrastructure is essential for EV charging. Outages, for example due to wildfire or grid stress, can make electric truck operations difficult or impossible in affected regions. C. Safeguarding supply chains. Because California ports handle a large share of U.S. imports, trucking regulations that are strict in California can have outsized effects on national supply logistics. This was a key argument in the multi-state lawsuit. Brain 3. What happens when trucking infrastructure strains or fails? While the video suggests a national supply chain collapse, here's what actual emergency planning frameworks say. Stafford Act and AMP, Federal Emergency Support. The Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act is the primary U.S. law that enables federal disaster response when state, local capacity is overwhelmed. A major disaster or emergency declaration permits federal agencies, including FEMA, to provide coordinated assistance, including logistics support. Governors must request such assistance if the disaster exceeds their capacity. Once activated, federal resources can help with transportation, logistics, supply chain stabilization, infrastructure repair, and more. Warning, however, the Stafford Act does not automatically empower the U.S. military to operate domestically, except through specific support roles under Defense Support of Civil Authorities, DSCA, and typically requires a presidential declaration like a national emergency. Military Helmet 4. National Guard versus U.S. military in domestic logistics. National Guard. The National Guard is state-controlled and less federalized. It routinely assists with disaster response, including logistics, but does not replace private infrastructure or supply networks. Federal military under current U.S. law, using active duty military domestically for civil logistics generally requires a national emergency declaration, or specific authorizations, e.g., major disaster under Stafford, related statutes, when civil authorities cannot manage the crisis. Bottom line. A trucking crisis or partial supply chain strain could trigger federal support under an emergency declaration, but it is not automatic nor routine and typically happens only under significant conditions, e.g., disaster, severe energy emergencies, or systemic national risk. Bar Graph 5. Validity of national emergency for trucking infrastructure. Possible but not currently declared. U.S. federal authorities have plans and frameworks to respond to transportation network disruptions, but they are generally designed for disaster scenarios rather than regulatory implementation issues. Not automatic. Mandates alone, like a state rule about electric trucks, do not trigger federal intervention unless there's a broader emergency that meets legal definitions under statutes like the Stafford Act. Current evidence. There is no confirmed national emergency declaration specific to trucking or logistics breakdown in 2026. Hammer and wrench. 6. Suggested solutions and systemic responses. A. Short-term stabilization allow flexible fuel options in critical supply networks, diesel, hybrid, hydrogen, during transition periods. Expand grid reliability and EV charging corridors before phasing in large electric fleets. B. Emergency preparedness. Updating federal policy to specify criteria for transportation network emergencies could help clarify when federal logistics support should be deployed. C. Support for trucking workforce. Address labor shortages through visa policy reform, workforce development, and mobile fueling, charging hubs. Pushpin summary. What's happening? Checkmark. California's electric truck mandates have faced legal and practical pushback. Checkmark. Enforcement has been delayed or paused. Checkmark. Charging infrastructure and economic hurdles remain significant. What's real? Checkmark. The federal government can respond to transportation emergencies under existing law, but only after formal declarations and process. Checkmark. The National Guard supports states, but doesn't replace core infrastructure unless legally designated. What's speculative? Multiply. A sudden military logistics intervention without an official national emergency. Multiply. Immediate collapse of supply chains solely due to state electric truck rules. Global Robotics Corporation.